if you are targeting, let's say, an executive, go to a few of the executives that you are hoping, especially if you are in B2B SaaS software sales, 100% are they posting or people on their teams are. Go look at their posts and tell me if you see this. What you'll see is the executive, if they've shared the right way, tends to get a lot of engagement, lots of likes and claps and hearts and all of that, and almost no comments. It's wild. And to me, it's the equivalent of like they're standing in a room at a conference, they're shouting whatever it is they're talking about. They've got 100 people around them that are like from afar. And then one person, probably me, is like, nobody's talking to her, or I'll go do it. And then you pop up and you start to have the conversation. So a really cool thing is that there's almost no competition whatsoever in terms of actually getting to your executive for social selling.
Hey everyone, welcome to the GTM News Show. I have Sam with me today. Hey Sam.
Hi, how's it going?
It's going well. Thanks for joining me. Looking forward to our conversation.
Me too.
Awesome. Well, I brought Sam on. She is all over LinkedIn. Actually, that's how I found her, and I've been consuming her content for a while there. And I wanted to bring her on because I think she has a bunch of insight around really sales in 2023, what sort of practices, everything from social selling to how to adapt to new buyers' behavior that she can share with us. So Sam, let's just start off with kind of 2023. So much has changed, I feel like, in people's expectations. The buyer's journey has changed. And let's hear your perspective on how has buyers' behaviors changed. Let's start there.
Yeah, I think, one of the things that is really evident, I think, to those of us in the know, or those of us who are really picking up on it, is that our buyers are so numb to the kind of content that they're getting every single day in their sales emails. So we think about the, Sam plus Bob, quick connect, or Sam carrots Bob, quick meeting, and just really generic, I didn't do my research, I am spamming you and 1,000 of your closest friends kind of thing, right? We're so numb to that. I think the other thing is that buyers are going into all sorts of places to do their back channeling and doing their research. So they're going to like Slack channels, they're going to communities, they're going to WhatsApp groups, they're going to LinkedIn to read. And I think what's really interesting is for marketers and sellers alike, when we really think about how to get our buyers' attention, LinkedIn is such a vehicle for that, if only we knew the data, right? So we know our audiences are coming into LinkedIn to read, to learn, not to be told or to be sold. So when we think about something that was really interesting before, which was LinkedIn ads, it just lit a bunch of money on fire and then put a bunch of ads up. Now, what we're really seeing is a trend of people seeking thought leadership. So if we really want to meet our buyers where they are, it's there. 920 million members, over 450 million of those come in at least once a week for 5 minutes to read and to learn and to engage. It's such a hotbed and just a modern way to think about marketing and about sales capture and social selling.
Thanks for that background. I think, I couldn't agree more as far as just, different ways people are, with information being so readily available, just makes sense that folks are looking at new areas. Yeah. I'd love to hear dive a little bit deeper into really how can sales folks adapt, and what kind of practices would you recommend to sales teams and then also sales leaders? How can they help develop folks with these new ways of selling and connecting?
Oh gosh, how much time do we have? So I think one thing, like, let's call it out for the sales leaders first, right? I recently posted about this over the weekend and talked about the fact that we expect our leaders to teach, to coach, to do all of these things, and we expect them to do it in a modern way when it might have been quite some time since they were an individual contributor, or quite some time since they went through any sort of modernized sales trainings, right? We've all been through the Sandlers and the Spins and the Bants of the world and force managements and all of that. Cool. That was great, right? Franklin Covey in the 90s. But what have we done since, even the early 2000s? And I think one thing, right, I'm hopeful that leaders can feel psychologically safe in their environment to say, hey, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to personalize. I don't know how to social sell. I don't know how to do modern digital selling. We haven't gone through this training and we're expected to teach our reps how to do it and we don't have a clue. And what we're finding is a lot of leaders aren't doing that. And so what they're doing is they're perpetuating motions that don't quite work anymore, right? They're still advocates for cold calling. They're still saying networking is where it's at. They're still saying, send 100 emails through outreach and hope for the best. Personalize their name. That'll get them. But instead, we really need to think about those modern ways. How do we social sell? How do we leverage information that we can find online, right, to personalize? How do we write a great outbound email? Those are the things that are so, so important in our modern day. For our reps, right, regrettably, I'm going to tell you, you have to put in the effort. There are no shortcuts. And I think the people that will really stand out are the reps that use, let's say, AI, ChatGPT, things like that, to create efficiencies around the things that they learn. Like, if you're going after Intel and you're like, what the hell is a chip or a semiconductor? You can figure that out really quickly through ChatGPT and get a quick education. But you need to mix that with your brain, your soul, your humor, who you are, and some authenticity. So we are known for Show Me You Know Me, which I know we will talk about more, but it's just the idea of doing research on the human, the company, the buyer persona, and what's going on in their vertical. And how do we create a subject line, right, that really stands out in a modern way? So if you sent me something that might say speeding tickets plus barefoot Contessa plus your company name, do we think I'm going to open that, which relates directly to me, over Sam Carrot's Bill Connect? Yeah, 100%. So I think what we really have to think about, right, is that it's quality over quantity today. It's how do we make an effort? How do we authentically connect with somebody? And then how do we also think about writing an email that actually solves the challenge of our buyers rather than doing what everybody else does out there, which is a marketing email sent by salespeople. This is what I do. Do you want to buy some of it? No, I have that. Bye. This is a challenge that I solve. And here's a specific way I solve that. And if your forthcoming objection is this, here's how I get around it. Interested in learning more? Yeah. So I think it's that. It's really back to basics. It's good digital selling. It's showing up prepared for calls. It's how to be personable at a discovery call. Now, all of you that are listening and saying, no kidding, duh. I already do all that. I would say probably not. And the reason I would say that is at Sam Sales, we review hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails and we review hundreds of discovery calls. They're pretty much all the same. They start in a generic way. They're spray and pray. And there's nothing really authentic or human there at all.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah, what I've noticed as a marketer and a seller is that my biggest challenge has always been that I am not my buyer. I've never been my buyer. I've not been in their shoes, and I have this bias, this unconscious or maybe sometimes conscious bias towards not having understanding their what's going on, and so working very hard. I think you even said this, right? It takes work to really get yourself inside their situation, understand what's going on in their world.
I would say too, think about, some of you from the buyer persona that you have, many of you have that buyer persona working in your own company. Now, there are some really technical roles and things like that you may not have, but if you sell to a head of sales, a product engineer, someone that does, financial, analysis, find that person and say, hey, do you know what we do as a product? Do you know what challenge we solve? Cool, you should, because you work here. Also, can I send you an email and an outbound email that I would try? And would you let me know if it would work on you? So even if you don't have access to teams like us that can help you write and teach and train and all that stuff, just go in-house. That's exactly what I did. I started writing emails to our CMO and I'm like, would this pique your interest? Would this pique your interest? Until I nailed it. And that's how I started to learn, right, that everything we were sending before was just sales or marketing stuff versus a true selling email.
I love that. Super cool. And I've never thought about the idea of going internal. So that's super, super helpful. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Let's dive a little bit deeper into the Show Me You Know Me. It's up on your wall. So I'd love for you to, you mentioned a little bit as far as understanding. Any other insights or best practices around this process?
We started, this is something that I have been advocating for 12 years at this point. And I just love the catchiness of it, the rhyme of it. And then finally, I was like, well, we need to trademark this. So we did. So Show Me You Know Me to me is just the idea of how do we show a client that we understand, again, who they are as a person, who their company is, who their vertical, what their vertical is, and what challenges they might be going through as a buyer persona. So Show Me You Know Me bleeds through every single touch point of the sales cycle. From the very first email that we send, that subject line and truly understanding the challenge they have, all the way to when we've had a buyer for 10 years. Think about a couple of places where this can go through. After the email and all that, it's showing up prepared for a call, right? In our perfect discovery call training, we have a cheat sheet of the things that we want you to know, 2 or 3 of them before you get on the call. Who's the person? How long have they worked there? Who do they know? Where were they before? Was it a client of yours? All that stuff. Where does their name appear in your CRM, right? Have they worked with you before at another client? Are they tied to 16 opportunities that have closed, lost, canceled? What is it about this time that's different, right? Showing up in that way. And then their company. Something as small as getting the company name right when you show up, right? People call us same sales sometimes. And then we've even gotten Sam's Ales, which is why we brew a beer every single year now, in case things don't work out in sales training. We've got a beer company. But nail that first, right? Again, what their company does, who their competitors are. Do you work with their competitors? The beautiful part about digital selling is, guess what? You can have a cheat sheet right here. You can literally have the crib notes that we all use in our college exams. No, just me. Just kidding. But you can have that in front of you. Pretend like you've already got it all under wraps in your head, and you don't at all. The other things I would say, right, is when you use that information, when we listen to discovery calls, here's what we hear. Hey, Taylor, where are you based? Where are you calling in from? How long have you been there? Where did you work before? What roles have you had in the organization? All the stuff that's on my LinkedIn profile? Sure, let me spend some time telling you that. So how we can show up differently. And again, when we listen to these discovery calls in our recordings, that's what we hear every time. It is so rare to hear somebody showing up and having some information and having an ability to build rapport. And I'll just say 1, 2 more things maybe. The way that we nurture our clients and our buyers, right? We hear that word and we often think that it's dealing with marketing, but marketing does 100% nurture our buyers, but so do we, or rather, so should we. So when we find out something about our clients, right? They love guitars. They have 2 dogs. They can't wait to travel to somewhere. They're running an Ironman, right? All things that come top of mind to me that we've done for our clients. Let's send them something, right? We have a client that told us that she was running in a race in California, and she was hoping to place, I think, in the top 2 or 3% to qualify for the Kona, Hawaii Ironman. So we're like, basically make conversation. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. Like, how do you even fuel for that? And I'm asking a question that shows interest. What I'm really trying to do is find out what she eats so then I can mail it to her. And so, $14.99 for a box of her favorite bars or something that we sent a month before her race and said, little something to carry you through the end of your training and to the race. $14 to make an impact. Or we create a guitar pick. We have one made on Etsy for someone who loves guitars, and we have it branded with Sam Sales, $5.60 to make an impact. Just ways you can nurture, tell people you see them as more than just a buyer. I could talk about this. We have like 90 more minutes to talk about Show Me You Know Me, right? Because I could go on forever.
I love it. I wish we did. And I'm sure we could. But that's so cool. I love that story in regards to really, I think gifting in general usually almost always falls short, right? It's always just weird and contrived and generic, similar to most outbound or a lot of outreach when it comes. But I love that as far as really getting to know them, understanding them as a person, and then at the right time sending them a gift. And the timing of that gift was also really important, where it wasn't just the next day, because that wouldn't have been as special. But you waited, right? And then it was like, and then she's like, wait, I'm sure that person had to remember, like, oh, what did I tell her? Like, how did they find? Oh, that's right, we had that conversation a while ago. So it's a really cool combination of multiple things there.
I think we had to wait. Honestly, I think we had to wait 4 months to make it happen. So we found that out. We kept track of it. I think we probably placed the order in advance, but just that kind of stuff goes a long way. And let's talk about just quickly the wrong timing. People still do this. They do gifting as a way to get a meeting, right? Okay, so if I give a pair of AirPods, I'm going to spend $200 cost per lead for somebody to take a meeting. One, most of the senior buyers you want, a lot of them can't even take gifts. 2, they're going to feel cheesy and kind of cheap taking that gift. And 3, what's the payoff of that? Why don't you spend that money later? Let's be really creative to get their attention. Let's go higher versus lower in terms of titles. Let's spend the time on quality research for quality titles for us. And then Let's send them something later. Let's spend $200 in a different way, their favorite sushi restaurant or whatever the heck it is they're telling you about. The timing, I think, needs to be authentic and not weird and creepy.
I love that. I love that. Super cool. I would love to, you mentioned something earlier in regards to like when you're doing the outreach and actually looking to solve a problem.
Yeah.
What I noticed as an AE and an account executive was that some of the best outreach I ever did or just communication was like not necessarily solving a problem with my product, but just helping them solve a problem through content or something even 2-3 degrees away from our product, right? Just building that rapport and trust. Any thoughts there in regards to like using content, partnering with marketing to invite them to webinars? I don't know. I'd love to hear all your thoughts there in regards to actually solving a problem that doesn't require booking a demo.
I think two things. So when you think about the outreach and the challenge you solve, I want you to think about what you would say if you got that person on the call, a discovery call, and if you could very rudely say, you're an idiot if you don't move forward with our product because this one thing that you care about is precisely what we can solve for you. And here's how we can solve it for you, right? Of course, we would never say that to anybody. Don't ever say that. Please make sure I said, if you rudely said, but think about this. So I think what we tend to focus on is too vague and too high level about the so what of our product. We talk about this all the time at Sam Sales. You've got your feature. Everybody knows that. You've got your benefits. Some people know that. The elite reps know your so what. So for instance, when I was selling LinkedIn Sales Navigator and I would read the emails that were going out from the LinkedIn team, it was like, we can help you surface insights about your buyers at the right time for the right whatever. And I'm like, boring. ZoomInfo can do that. Google Alerts can do that. Nobody cares. How does the product actually solve a challenge? So I might say, let's say to a VP of sales, hey, you know that some of your best lead sources are coming directly from clients who change jobs. If you don't have a process to formalize this across every single person that you guys touch that becomes a client, that's part of the process that changes jobs, that is one of 100 things that LinkedIn Sales Navigator can do for you and open up a brand new stream of MQLs. Interested in learning more? Yeah, because we don't have a process for that. I know how many people come to us proactively and we react to those leads. What if we could turn the tables? What if we could track everybody and we could proactively reach out? So what of what your product can do? And I think that's what's so important, that if you imagine, sit down with your team, sit down with marketing, sit down with products. So what about our product? Talk to a client that's worked with you. Tell what are the challenges we solve for you? How can we put this in an email? When you do that and you invest that time in email 1, 3, 4, 5, et cetera, you're going to significantly up the odds that person's going to reach out. Now, content-wise, right, we know that only 3% of our buyers are in an active, like ready to buy. We've got 7% of our buyers who are considering it. We've got 30% below that are lurking and learning, and 30 other percent below that are like, we're probably not moving. And then the final 30% is like, we just signed a 3-year deal with ZoomInfo. We have no interest in new Sales Navigator. Thanks and goodbye. So the 67% there, right? The lurkers, the learners that probably not ready to move. How do we stay top of mind for them? We nurture them, and we can do that through emails and sequences and all that. Or we can also think about stuff from marketing and posting on LinkedIn. If your executives are not posting on LinkedIn, if your executives aren't connected to your top prospects, if your executives aren't reaching out to say, I know that you and Sam had a great conversation. I realize now this timing's not right. If I can do anything to help you, please let me know. In the meantime, let's stay in touch. If you're not doing that and then not posting content about your experience, your journey, your leadership style, your product, the benefits, the webinars you're having, oh my God, are you missing out? We're very fortunate to be quoted in Inc. magazine about all the ghostwriting that we do on LinkedIn for execs. But I was quoted in there talking about how LinkedIn is this sleeping giant that most of us have been ignoring. What an amazing opportunity to capture our buyers' attention when all of our buyers are going there and none of our competitors are going there.
I love that.
No passion for any of this stuff, Taylor.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Curious, and this kind of ties well into it, social selling and this concept. And actually a lot of it, what's interesting about the concept of social selling, I feel like it almost needs a new term because so much of it is actually not selling, right? It's actually just building networks, serving people, it's helping them, it's building that relationship. So I'd love for you to define social selling in your world. And then from the executive all the way down to the AE, where do you see it playing, especially obviously on LinkedIn?
You're exactly right. And we need a new term for it. So I think where we've gotten it wrong is that people are social selling. They're sending empty pitch, connection requests. They're doing pitch slaps, but that's with a P, immediately pitching on there. They're going for the hard sell. They're only posting things about their company, webinars, press releases. I think you're right. I think, if we do think of social selling is not what we want to do. We need to come up with a new name. But again, as we talked about earlier, I have no creativity whatsoever given my business name. So we'll noodle on that. But to me, what kind of that modern selling is, right, or social selling, differently termed, is just the idea of how it's basically networking online. LinkedIn is a 24/7 networking playground where you can share your thoughts, you can weigh in on conversations, you can do all kinds of things. You can leverage information, you can read articles, you can see what your executives and prospects are posting about, or community members, your thought leaders. Like, it's really a place to learn, connect, share your thought leadership, and hopefully convert after you've earned the right to do that. I think a couple of things are fascinating to me about LinkedIn. So one, it's still an enigma for so many, so we're not really sure what to do. But if you are targeting, let's say, an executive, go to a few of the executives that you are hoping, especially if you are in B2B SaaS software sales, 100% are they posting, or people on their teams are. Go look at their posts and tell me if you see this. What you'll see is the executive, if they've shared the right way, tends to get a lot of engagement, lots of likes and claps and hearts and all of that, and almost no comments. It's wild. And to me, it's the equivalent of, like, they're standing in a room at a conference, they're shouting whatever it is they're talking about. They've got 100 people around them. They're like, from afar. And then one person, probably me, is like, nobody's talking to her, or I'll go do it. And then you pop up and you start to have the conversation. So a really cool thing is that there's almost no competition whatsoever in terms of actually getting to your executive for social selling. The other great thing is, if you just take the time, right, like to go curate a feed of buyers that you want to get in front of, and go and look at their content and start to comment. Again, it is the equivalent of walking a conference floor, seeing one of the executives that you're desperate-ish to get in front of and be like, they're talking and there's people around them. I'm going to go hear what they're saying. You go and listen. They say something, and then you're like, hey, I've got a thought on that. Here's my thought. Here's my perspective. Here's my weigh in on whatever you're saying. Don't just say, cool thoughts, Bill, and then stare at them. Give them something that's in your brain. I think on the executive side for posting, this is amazing. Edelman Research recently talked about how if an executive posts on behalf of their company, right? They work at a company and they post thought leadership, they are going to get 561% more reach than others in their company that are posting. That is insane. It's insane. And what you also think about is the trustworthiness factor, right? So Edelman also talked about this, how a company is 82% more trustworthy if executives are posting content. You're giving people something to read and an ability to network with those individuals. But as a seller, social selling to me has always been ever present, because I go in, I look through my feed, or I custom curate it, which I'll talk about in a second. But I comment through, I look to see what's going on, right? And then I maybe drop a note in, I drop a second and a third. And then in 3 weeks, I say, I really love your content, thought I'd reach out and connect. And then guess what happens? I'm connected to them. I have a two-way DM conversation that I can have. And because I'm commenting on their stuff, they're much more likely to see my stuff. Now, final thing I'll say on the social selling front, ways to be strategic and really curate this. One thing I'll do is I'll have a top 50 or 100 list of people that I would kill to get in front of, right? Like how can I get a meeting with you? And what I'll do is I'll do that. I'll comment on their content, or I might connect with them directly and say, you don't post on LinkedIn, but I read your article, heard your podcast, loved your perspective on this. I feel so the same way, thought I would say hello. Then in that connection request, though, I will think of a word, right? I've got a code word at Sam Sales. I'll think of a word that I don't always use. Maybe it's like curating or something like that, but it's rare that I use. And then what I do is I go and I search for that word on maybe a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning. Oh, I have to work on the weekend. Yes, I know. Go and search for that word. Look at all the executives that you would do literally almost anything to get in front of, and look for what we call bubble hunting. Look for little green dots in front of their name in your LinkedIn inbox. And if you see a green dot, it means that they're online on their desktop and they're using LinkedIn. Send them a message. Have to follow up by your podcast. The reason I loved it so much was Great point of view. This is something from my past, whatever that I think about. Thanks again for the great stuff. Guess what happens? The person, more often than not, will reply. Then you start a conversation. Then you're back and forth. And you're like, oh, I got to run. Have a great weekend. And then on Tuesday, you pop back in. I just thought of our conversation. By the way, would you ever be up for a conversation? I think we can significantly help you this way. If you're up for a chat, let me know. Again, more often than not, you'll get a ping back and somebody will take a meeting with you. I can't tell you how many deals we won that way. It's a little bit of a slower burn, but it's a much faster close, right? Because you're actually getting the person to respect you and take the meeting with you.
So cool. I love that. And I love the engaging when they're online. That's a cool tactic. And also, I never thought about the executives. Most people dislike and are probably afraid to comment because they don't want to say the wrong thing or whatnot. That's so interesting. I'd love to hear, we have a couple more minutes left. I'd love to hear a little bit about, I think a lot of organizations, either the team is afraid to post because the executives aren't, outside of obviously hiring Sam Sales to do the ghostwriting. Any best practices you can have for executives for posting and leading the organization in creating content online?
Yeah, I think it definitely has to be something that you commit to, because you're not going to see results if you just go to the gym once a month. Same thing with posting. So I would say, one, just set a goal for yourself to post at least twice a week. Yes, that's a lot. It really pays off for visibility for your teams. Second thing that I would say is think about that your posts should 20% of the time be company or self-promotional. 80% of the time you are teaching, you're educating, you're telling a story, you're inspiring, you're doing something. Now, it may be tied exactly to something you do, right? Today, we posted about a hack that we have for discovery calls. And what did we do at the end? We talked about how we train on perfect discovery calls. Yeah, self-promotional, but I'm still teaching you something, so they'll still get great engagement. The final thing I would just kind of say there is to be mindful of the hook. Your post will live and breathe and die by the hook and by people clicking ... see more in your post. So if you write something like, here are my thoughts on world peace or something, think about a great hook that's clickbaity, but that's not clickbaity. So I'll give you an example. I will write a quote that I see salespeople do a lot, right? And something that I don't agree with. And so then I will write that quote, and then I'll put the long line of emojis that have the lines for eyes and the line for mouth. Because what's great is that reps are like, yeah, I do that. And then they're like, oh, she doesn't like that. Why? And then I will get them to click in and read, right? Or I might say, on a call the other day, a prospect asked us XYZ, or what's the best way to prospect today? And here's what we said. Not like, it was the worst day of my life. I was at a fork in the road. Keep in mind, we want to make it clickbaity without being gross clickbaity. I lied. One more thing to tell you. I think also managing the engagement is really important. So when you get comments, are you commenting back? Are you looking to see who liked and commented on your post? Are you proactively connecting with second and third degree connections? Are you putting in the effort to build your network? It's a lot of work, which is why people hire us all the time, so they don't have to do any of that. But if you're bootstrapped and you really want to make an effort, that's the place to go. And shameless self-promotional plug. If you go to shorts.samsalesconsulting.com, there's a playbook that teaches you everything for about $400. So have at it there.
Super cool, Sam. Super helpful. What a wealth of information. I know the audience is going to love this.
Thanks.
Thanks so much for taking the time. How can folks follow you online outside of checking out that course?
Pop over to our website, samsalesconsulting.com. You can sign up for a newsletter there. We have events every month. We also have a women's leadership group that's about 1,000 members. That's part of it, all totally free. And our newsletter comes out on Friday, and it's pretty funny to boot, if I do say so myself on behalf of our head of marketing. But we'll teach you lots and lots of stuff and probably tell you a little pop culture along the way.
I love it, Sam. Perfect. We'll put those links in the show notes. And thanks again for coming on. Thanks, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you all next week.